In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can take the mutes that you already have and get them to sound and play better. What's going on, everyone? My name is Josh Rzepka, and today is Mute Monday. If you're new around here, welcome. Mute Monday is the only weekly series dedicated to trumpet mutes on YouTube. Today I have a very important topic to discuss, and this is something that most trumpet players completely neglect or they don't know, and that is filing the corks on your mutes. Now, it may seem like a little simple thing or not that important, but I'm going to demonstrate with 3 different mutes, and you're going to hear a drastic difference between mutes where the corks haven't been filed at all and mutes where the corks have been filed to fit my trumpet. You will really be amazed at how different they sound in tone quality and intonation. Most people don't realize that just by filing the corks on your mutes, you can get them to play more in tune and to sound better. So I'm going to demonstrate side by side with 2 Humes Berg Straight mutes, 2 Humes Berg Cup mutes, and 2 Harmon Pixie mutes. Once you realize how drastic of a difference it makes to file the corks and to really fit it and tune it to your trumpet, you're going to be scratching your head a little bit and saying, why haven't I done this sooner? And maybe there's some mutes in your collection that you weren't that fond of, and it could just be the corks. And once you file them, once you get it fitted properly to your trumpet, you may love that mute. It may actually play great. So let's jump into this. When you buy a mute, here is a straight mute from Humes Berg, and I'm going to hold this up close, and you can see on the label, on the bottom, it says file corks if necessary. Check this out. This is an old Humes Berg Chicago straight mute, and this one was actually restored by Roger Ingram, and he did an incredible job, but it says file corks if necessary. This one right here, this has been tuned. This has been filed to fit my trumpet perfectly. Now, here is another Chicago era Humes Berg mute. You can see the original label. It says file corks if necessary on the bottom. And this one, I haven't touched the corks, and the person who owned it previously, they hadn't either. The corks have been used, but they're still probably twice as thick as the one that has been adjusted to my trumpet. And look at the difference here on the one that has been filed. Check that out. And now, look at the thickness of this cork. Can you see that? The thickness of this cork, it is so much thicker. I'm going to hold them side by side. Can you see those corks? Look at that. This is probably half the thickness. Now, let's listen to hear how these straight mutes sound. And I'm going to play a couple scales, arpeggios, just going back and forth so you can hear the fullness and evenness of sound and the intonation going from low to high. The most important thing when you're dialing in your mute, you want to file the cork sound so that low F sharp just comes out nice and full. If you've got a nice, full, resonant, in tune, low F sharp with your mute, then the rest of the mute will follow. Then you'll be able to play in tune throughout all of the registers. This was taught to me by Roger Ingram, the mute meister himself. So let's hear how these straight mutes sound, and then we're going to move on to the other mutes. Alright, so you've just heard those 2 straight mutes, and that's a pretty drastic difference, isn't it? The evenness in sound, the intonation, the fullness. Here's what I use to file my corks. I've got 2 types of sandpaper right here, and one of them is a finer one, and one of them is a heavier grit. So this is a 100 grit sandpaper, and it's pretty rough. And that really allows me to take a lot of cork off. And then I use this 220 grit sandpaper, and this is much finer, and this allows me to smooth it down. Now, if I need to remove a lot of cork, if this is a brand new mute that needs a lot of cork removed, I will use an X-Acto knife, and I will shave off 1/8 of an inch. And I will get myself to the ballpark, because some new mutes, the corks that they put on them are so thick. But they need to do that because some trumpets, the flare of the bell is so wide that the mute actually goes further in and they need a thicker cork. That's why it's important that you tune the mutes to the trumpet that you have. And some people actually have multiple sets of mutes for different trumpets, one for their B flat, one for their C. That way they can get those mutes dialed in so they're playing in tune and that they sound the best that they can possibly sound, depending on which instrument they're using. Moving on to these two cut mutes, you're gonna see that this one right here, this I haven't touched the corks on. This one has got these big thick corks. This one, the corks are so much thinner. Check that out. Can you see how thin the cork is on that? Now look at the cork on this one. It is a fat cork. This is a brand new cork, essentially. This is an old mute. However, the corks on this were never filed, I can tell. And because of that, it doesn't go into the bell as far and it doesn't sound as good. It doesn't play as in tune. It's not as even of a sound. So let's hear how these two mutes sound side by side. All right, so you've just heard those two cut mutes and same thing, big difference. The intonation, the fullness of those low notes and the intonation as you go higher is so much better when you file the corks on a cut mute like this. Check this out. This is about how far in the mute should go. You see the edges. You see the edges on this mute. It's got like those little scalloped edges. That design was put in place so that you knew how far you should put the mute in. You don't want these little edges to touch the bell. However, you want them to be pretty close. You want them to just be coming up to the edge of the bell. And check out how far away from the end of the bell this mute that wasn't adjusted was sitting. When you put this in, look at that. You see the difference. It's a good centimeter to half an inch further outside of the bell, and that's why it doesn't play as well. All right, now let's dive into these two Harmon Model O Pixie mutes. And I gotta say, this is the most drastic of all the mutes that I'm sharing today. You are gonna be shocked. If you've ever bought one of these mutes, you probably put it in your trumpet and you started playing, and then you thought to yourself, what did I just buy and why did I spend money on this? When this comes from the factory, the corks are so thick for this small Pixie mute that it actually does not play very well at all. And a lot of people have difficulty getting even a low C to come out into slot or even an E in the staff. And that is very problematic. I'm not even talking about intonation. I'm just saying certain notes won't even come out. You may think this is a terrible mute. Well, I've got a surprise for you. It's not. I have a second Harmon Pixie right here, and the corks on this have been filed down to practically nothing. I have filed the corks down so much on this, and you are going to be shocked the difference between the unfiled corks and the filed corks. Now let me hold this up real close. Check out the thickness of those corks. You see that? Look at the thickness of those corks. Now, this is the one that I filed the corks on. Check out the thickness of these corks. You see the difference. It is a massive difference. The corks on this, they can't be more than 2 millimeters thick. The corks on this are more than twice as thick. And you're gonna hear such a drastic difference that you're probably gonna go into your mute collection and find some of these mutes that you thought were duds. I'm willing to bet that they really just needed to be adjusted. You're gonna realize that you have a lot more mutes that play well and that a lot of your mutes play even better. So let's hear these two Pixie mutes and see what a difference filing the corks makes. Well, what did I tell you? This mute, without filing the corks, it is pretty bad. However, this is not a terrible Pixie mute once you get it adjusted properly. Most Pixie mutes, they don't play as well as straight mutes. A lot of people have difficulty with Pixie mutes. That being said, this mute works just fine once you have it dialed in. And unfortunately, most trumpeters, they buy a new mute, they take it out of the package, out of the box, they stick it in their bell and they start playing, and they think that's it. They think that is how the mute is supposed to sound. And really, with practically every mute you buy, you need to adjust the corks. I think a lot of manufacturers would benefit if they sent some instructions, just a little piece of paper explaining how to file the corks and how to fit it and tune it to your trumpet. People would be so much happier with all the mutes that they bought, and they would be playing more in tune, and just everything is so much better. So hopefully this video inspires you to go into your mute collection and take them out and dial your mutes in. I promise you, you will be so much happier. Your mutes will play so much better. They will play the way they were designed to play. Get some sandpaper, get an X-Acto knife, get a file, spend some time dialing your mutes in and fitting them to your trumpet. You will thank me. They will play so much better. If you found this video helpful, let me know in the comments below. I love hearing from all of you, and I try and respond to every comment. And while you're at it, why don't you hit that like button and the subscribe? It really makes a very big difference. I want to thank you for watching today, and I will see you in the next video.